Today we are joined by Rhea Sam, a passionate data scientist at Valtech, whose journey into the field was ignited by a TED Talk on data visualization that sparked a lasting fascination with the power of data. She walks us through her transition from business and computer science to data science, emphasising the importance of personal branding, lifelong learning, and seizing opportunities.
I'm sitting here today because I've done that personal work, personal branding, self-promotion, even though I find it cringe. And that goes back to the fear of being seen.
Rhea discusses the promise of generative AI, its potential for social good, and the importance of ethical responsibility, accessibility, and aligning technology with real-world impact.
If I'm building something, can somebody who's outside my work actually use it? Outside the technical area, use it? Because at the end of the day, it's when you're building something, you need to think about the accessibility.
Rhea encourages stepping out of comfort zones, embracing evolving opportunities, and leveraging soft skills to make meaningful impact. Her passion really shines through in this episode. Enjoy! Rhea, let's talk data.
Hello.
Hello. So we're talking about a lot of things today, but firstly, data science. What a wonderful world to be part of.
Brilliant. Always changing.
Yes. Interestingly, what sparked your interest in data science?
Oh, I love talking about this just because it's semi-conventional, but also I think I've met the right people at the right time. Call it luck slightly, but yeah. So my entire world introduction to kind of data actually started with a random TED Talk I watched in my undergrad. So I did my undergrad in Anglo-Ruskin University in Chelmsford. I was doing a business computer science degree. And at that time, it was fine. It was, very software focused, maybe not something I cared about too much, but still all right. And I love the business side more. And then I was just getting ahead of the curve, let's say, showing off the nerd that I was probably back then. And in my second year, I kind of went, all right, what are some other ways of exploring? And I knew the idea of a business analyst and I was pivoting into that. But I came across this random TED Talk about data visualization. It was actually talking about statistics and visualization by Hans Rosling. It's a really old one. But all I said when I saw that to myself was, I want to do cool animation graphs like that and tell a story. Did a little deep dive, figured out there was more to it than just pretty graphs, obviously. And whatever was fueling his talk was actually data. He was backing his facts by data. And I thought, oh, that's fascinating. And so I kind of went a little further, spoke to one of my supervisors who I kind of knew was in that space with machine learning and AI. And I had a chat with him and I was like, this is kind of where I'm interested in. What do you recommend? He recommended some courses on Udemy, self-taught myself, a lot of the machine learning bits in Python and R, and then ended up doing my thesis completely unrelated to my degree and did it on predicting an epidemic a couple of months before the pandemic hit.
Stop.
So timely hit. And I didn't know, for anyone who thinks I did. But it was on the H1N1 influenza. But yeah, it was very interesting. And that's really where I got in. And then I was hooked. COVID hit, so my prospects as an international student were quite grim because I only get a couple of months to stay in the country. So I said, the world slowed down, I might as well do a master's. And I did a master's in data science at Lancaster University. And then decided, actually, this is where I want to be. I want to be problem solving with data, and I wanted to know how. And I loved the technical bit, but I also loved, okay, I know all this technical knowledge. How do I put this to a business? Why would the business use this if it didn't matter to them? So it's piecing. They don't really teach you that some places, but I know Lancaster did focus on some modules where okay, but you need to think about the business use case now. How would you now put all this knowledge that you have into play? And I don't think I've looked back since. I worked at a startup for almost a year. That was my first big break into data. And then through a hackathon, actually, met my current company, Valtech, and that was awesome. That is the coolest way to say, I went to a hackathon and then got hired a couple of months later by them just because of the connection I made and the people I met, and became a data scientist. So it's been about 3.5 years into this.
Wow, an awesome journey so far. Talk to me about the hackathon then, for anyone who doesn't know quite how they work. It sounds very cool.
Yeah, actually there's multiple kinds, to be very honest. So the one that I got introduced to was actually run by a company that's no longer running, called Showcode. And the people that I really got connected with, shout out to Alex Adams and Jess Rush, because they were the first people that I got in touch. We were actually sponsoring with my startup company to do one of the competition prompts for people attending. So this kind of hackathon actually focused on women and non-binary.
Right.
And it was like a 2-day weekend thing, and you could stay overnight if you wanted to. And some people did pulled an all-nighter. Some people definitely took the naps they needed. They fueled us like crazy. Like, they spoiled us with food. Honestly, it's not that it was one of the highlights. I will say that it was great. Who says they can get sushi at Hackathon? Are you kidding me? Yeah. So the Hackathon really was more focused on prototyping, and you could come from a non-technical background or a technical background, and that was the beauty of it. You could have a team ready to go, come show up and start hacking, like doing a scavenger hunt and then going into one of the problems that the companies are offering and solve it. You can prototype it to a large degree. A lot of people use like Miro or Figma. Figma was the main tool for like prototyping. Or you could just, flesh out the business plan, how you would actually sell this, what's the viable product, and why would people want to invest in it. So yeah, it was pretty cool. That's kind of how I met Valtech, because there's a lot of recruiters that come in and a lot of graduate kids who'd want to like try and build that connection, get the network. Some are second years, some are a lot of tech career switchers, which really inspired me because they didn't necessarily come from a tech background. And throughout my journey, I've met so many of them, some that I mentor and stuff, that are probably experts in their field and then decided they want to use data or tech to back it up and get into that space. And it's phenomenal how you can just go from knowing something your entire life and be like, no, actually, I want to try something new. So yeah, that was like the gist of the hackathon. Jess Rush did go on to build something with somebody else. They used to be an equal important member of the hackathon. He's done so many hackathons in his life. Sam, who's also kind of now built their own thing called Huddle Hive, which is a platform that does exist to let companies host hackathons online or in person. But they've also done a few on their own. So I've done a few with Valtech now, attended a few of those just because I knew the owners of the hackathons. Same principle. You're coming in for 2 days. It's not overnight. You get the 2-day weekend. You come, you find a team, start hacking, solve the problem, and then present on a Sunday afternoon and see if you win the prize. Prizes are cool too. You kind of get into it, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You're already showing how important it is to network, get involved in community so early on in your career, because I think there's a misconception sometimes. Like, you go to networking only if you're like senior or in a leadership role.
Absolutely.
And you're missing out on so much opportunity. Like, look, you've landed your amazing role at Valtech through that experience and gained a ton of experience as well. Who kind of encouraged you to do that, or was that all like intrinsic?
To be very honest, I think I'm a social butterfly, talk for days. That part of me probably drove me into finding new opportunities. And a lot of it just came through conversation with people. But the other bit is when I did that first hackathon where I was representing my previous company, I also realized there were a lot of students there. And I didn't think of that when I was in my undergrad to do that.
Yeah.
And I think the awareness around these kind of things is still something that there is a gap on. But that's how I kind of got my big break. And a part of it also has to do with your LinkedIn and building that personal brand. So it was a mixture of everything that then taught me, actually, this is how I'm going to make it far in the ambitions I have in life. And also to my father, who always told me that a strong network definitely goes a long way, especially if it is, whether that's, to kind of support people that you may have worked with that need to find a new role, or just, catch up on old memories of like work before you guys, went your separate ways. It's building that kind of connection, that network that doesn't necessarily have to be a transaction at the end of the day, but it can be, to an extent, to help you grow in whatever you want to pave your way into.
Yeah, so true. And we'll come on to personal branding in a minute.
Yes.
But going back to data science, because I know you're really passionate about the power of data science for good, because it can do a lot of good.
Yes.
So when did that resonate with you? When did you understand, wow, this is powerful if we put it in the right way?
Honestly, I think, when we start, you get naive. You're like, yeah, you've got these big goals and you want to just prove yourself to people. But then I think it really, really hit me when I really went into the generative AI space last year and really started getting into that more. Because, there's so many cool things out there happening right now. And it's moving at the speed of light. Like, it's hard to keep up as someone who's involved in this in the first place. But how much of it's actually helping people and how much of it is it limiting people? Because it's all about the accessibility to a large extent. A part of it with OpenAI changing history in 2022, making AI a thing that everybody can't stop talking about, and building that accessibility is wild. I would never have thought that in my wildest dreams, and I'm sure they've been thinking about this for years before. But then it became this thing that only developers could do it, or only certain technical people can do it. But then slowly, more and more kind of leaders and even like people that I kind of look up to started saying, no, actually, you can just start here. And I then personally took an interest to be like, okay, if I'm building something, can somebody who's outside my work actually use it, outside the technical area use it? Because at the end of the day, it's when you're building something, you need to think about the accessibility and if there's any harm. And I like that now it's taken more seriously, although I will say it has been such a slow process to getting the acts out, the EU AI Act out and the US AI Act out. Like, it should have been done before, but I'm glad we're starting now, because at least I hope for the future we're actually going to do better. And that's really where it's coming from. So, I think it just started with the work I was doing. Is like, is this actually impacting somebody in a good way? It just comes down to that simple question at the end of the day.
Yeah, it does. And you're right, like legislation and the law, they can't keep up with technology. Like no one can. Yeah. So how do you try and decipher, like, obviously it's your world, you're passionate about it, you know the problems it can solve, but there is a lot of hype as well.
And there's so much hype.
There's also a bit of fear around it. Yes. So to the like everyday person who has these kind of questions that we're all saying, how do you try and like calm them down or try and make them understand like the positive power it can have, but why we maybe need to be not apprehensive, but cautious at the same time?
Very good question. Honestly, I think it's a learning thing every day, how to do it. I completely understand the fear, because if I was outside of this, I would also not know where to start. But personally for me, what I try doing is if they do feel comfortable sharing it with me, what I try to do is like ask them how they feel, what is their concern to begin with, and kind of work backwards on that. A lot of it from the conversations I've had is, I don't know where to start. There's so much to do, and every day it's changing. And I said, totally understand. I'm in the same boat as you. Whilst I work in this space, I have this fear every day. I'm like, oh, but there's a new thing here and there's a new thing there. And my mantra for this year is, you know what? I'll know what I know, and there'll be things that I don't know, and that's okay, because it's wrong to think that you will know everything in this lifetime, and there's so much you would want to know. So I always say, pick a thing that you probably heard of quite a bit, and you're curious about, and just focus on that. Try really hard to tune out as much of the noise. Even if somebody tells you about something, you'll be like, thanks for letting me know, but I'm going to focus on this for now. And for anyone who really wants to pivot into this space, there are newsletters out there that kind of break down these chunks that I like, because even if I work in this, I think a lot of them using like technical jargon, and I'm like, why couldn't you say this? It takes me a while to register, like, what are you trying to say? So it's approaching it like you would if you were explaining to some of the like kids at school. So that's kind of the approach I try and do with my like kind of mentees as well. Start here, learn what an LLM is. How did it actually come to play? What is the under the hood if you're a technical person? And if you're a business person, why is LLM the new thing? What's the impact? Understand the business impact of it. And there's different newsletters for that, a podcast, listen about that. When you start breaking it down from the basics, which is, learning those LLMs, understanding why it's such a thing of AI model. What does it mean to be in the AI space today? Then you start finding out areas of interest that you'd like. For example, now agents and model context protocol is the new hype word. And like you said, there is so much hype around. A lot of it is just noise, and it's hard to weed out. It really is, because it's a lot of opinions and less facts, funnily enough. To that, I would say you kind of have to just tune it out, and conversations definitely help for that. So those are some of my tips to stay grounded.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And like, explain it to me like I'm 7 or 9 years old. And I do think what's interesting is we had an event the other day, Let's Talk Data event, and we talk about the power of storytelling and how that is going to get you ahead in terms of your
100%.
career. Those soft skills, communication. Now for you, you are a brilliant communicator. And I imagine like, it's not fair to say it comes completely naturally, because people, you know, like public speaking, and we'll come on to that, you have to practice your craft, hone your craft. It's not like straight away you can nail something, but it does come easier to some people. Now, if you are a data scientist or, you know, in the technical space and all you know is tech, that's how you talk. You struggle to really get across to the business what value it's going to add, because you default to tech rather than trying to explain and resonate with them. What advice would you give to someone? Because I think some people may be fearful that they are going to limit themselves from a career perspective if they don't know how to get out the tech.
Absolutely. Again, yes, a part of it feels natural, but there's a lot of work that's gone in the last 2 years. I've spoken to people to improve my communication, be like, okay, if I were to speak to a certain stakeholder, what are the kind of ways I would approach that? And it definitely comes from practice and experience. It's not something that comes just overnight. Yes, a lot of it is a part of it has to do with the skills you have to communicate. I would say if you wanted to start, have a friend at work that you know is doing that really well, and kind of lean on support and advice and practice with them how you would maybe treat some of the stakeholders. I remember a moment in the very first hackathon that I went to, or the second one, somebody had approached me, and, you know, they'd found me via LinkedIn. They're like, oh, I recognize you. And they had said something about, you know, what are the things I need to focus on as a data scientist? And she'd told some of the things that she thought she needed to focus on, because I'd asked her what she thought. And as expected, a lot of them said the technical bits, but they have completely forgotten the soft skills required to do the job. A data scientist, to be very honest, is actually a mixture. You can be a super technical person, but if your ambitions is to grow and to kind of build a community and lead one day, you definitely have to have the soft skills, the power of communication, the power of storytelling, because how else can you convince the people sitting in front of you that this is worth investing in at the end of the day? And despite, you could build the coolest solution out there, but if you can't communicate how cool it is, it's unfortunate, because you've put all this work in and it just doesn't get recognized. So my tip would be, find a support group. There are so many, like She Bites Back, Amber Shand. The reason why I love her community is actually because she talks about this kind of stuff. She talks about the power of confidence, the power of the power of fear of being seen, imposter syndrome, important topics that aren't talked about enough. And she builds that safe space for you to kind of learn from experts and then build that network and, you know, take it from there. So that would be my tip, is finding communities that do that. So you can start, you could just be a fly on the wall in the beginning, but slowly you'll have that safe space to build that confidence, and you'll see yourself starting to communicate a certain way. But definitely at work, I would say find that group that you trust and people that you think are communicating well, and ask. I had colleagues who'd reached out to me where I thought, oh, that's really sweet. Like, you think I can. I'm happy to help. And, you know, it's also comes from, it's a two-way thing. You should be willing to pass on that knowledge forward, as one of my favorite people at work say, passing on that knowledge forward makes a massive difference.
Yeah, great advice. Yeah. And Valtech is a consultancy.
Yeah, global consultancy. We do everything from like marketing, AI services, web applications. We work with massive clients and, you know, work on that side of things. So yeah.
What is the most popular demand, would you say, from a data science perspective at the moment? And how do you manage expectations with what is possible? Or maybe, because these people often aren't technical, they know, because they're also reading the hype and like, this is going to change everything. We're going to be so efficient, save time, add to the bottom line. Are those part of the requests, and are they realistic, and in terms of timescales?
That's a funny question. We always laugh. I've got my colleagues at work, and, you know, whenever we get a request, and we're like, oh, we know some of them have been through the hype, and we're going to have to navigate this certain way. The demand varies, you know. I know generative AI has taken over and that's the hype. And, we're talking about AI strategy and adoption. A lot of companies are struggling. Microsoft right now Microsoft and Google are definitely ahead in a lot of ways. And, their AI adoption strategy is something to watch out for. But a lot of companies want to do it, don't have the tools or the training to do it. And that's really why people struggle. So for Valtech, the demand is mixed. We have a lot of services, like I said. We also do like e-commerce and, we're doing a lot of strategy work. But we also do building. So for data science, it could be pure data science work. And I mean like pure machine learning. That just means like, building customer lifetime value models or, churn models or propensity, like talking about targeting certain customers for discounts and stuff. Or the work that I've been doing for the last year or so have been around chatbot experience, but not feeling like a chatbot, more like a user experience. So it's shaping the world, and it's no longer just data. It is finally an integration of data and software engineers and UX designers, because I think sometimes we forget that data sits at the kind of group level and it's not a solo contributor. No. And that is where a lot of projects fail, as I see it personally. And to your question about, requests coming in, again, they think when they come in, it's a sole request for data. And obviously a lot of it, when it kind of trickles down to the community to be like, who's available to do this? A lot of it also comes from the understanding of what the client's asking. It goes through so many iterations because the client's asking for something, but it's translated a certain way based on people's understanding. And then when it comes down to the level of technicality, that's when we're like, actually, this is what they're asking for. And it evolves beyond just data, but data can help fuel whatever they want to build. So for example, there's advanced search projects, almost feels like a Google search, but within your website, like within your company. So some of the demands go around that. You've also got some where it's very engineering focused and you're talking about automating certain manual tasks that the engineers could do in terms of data processing and mapping. I'm also seeing a rise for coding assistants, which is funny because we have a few that do exist like GitHub and Cursor. So some of the demands exist there. There are client requests, but the way you'd navigate that is educating them whilst explaining this is where we can come in and support. A lot of the AI requests that come in, definitely we are aware it is a budget thing, right? Everybody wants to adopt AI. So it's very natural that you want to make it as close as it is to AI. But managing that expectation is, okay, we could get there. Sometimes you just have to say, let's do the basics first. Here's the 3-step plan. Let's do step 1 and 2, and we'll get to the third. X amount of time. Sometimes we're like, actually, you know what? We've done a bit more research. You're right. We can do it this way. We're happy to give it a shot, and let's get on board. Let's start step 1, which is getting into AI because you've got the foundations in place. So I think it varies depending on the client that you're working with, for sure.
Yeah. What excites you most about the space? And like you said, it is ever evolving, so it's hard to imagine what's going to be possible in the future.
Yeah.
But where do you see it going, and what excites you about it?
Oh, good question. I feel like there's so many. I think technical bit, I think it's going to be very cool to see how our ways of working is going to change 5 years down the line. I think at that point, we'd be using some form of AI to kind of automate some of the manual tasks, and we're a little more efficient in the way we work. And I think we get more manual load off of us, mental load too, I feel. But again, depends on which way we're heading towards, because there's a lot of hype around AGI, artificial general intelligence or otherwise. But the other bit that excites me, I think, is more and more people realize that you need the soft skills, the storytelling.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited to see how that's going to shape the way the future of data science, just the world of data and people involved, how they're going to kind of tackle that. Because I think there is still a gap to be filled in terms of that. But storytelling might just be the as important as the technical near in the future. So I'm excited to see how that kind of grows and develops too.
Yeah, agreed. In terms of efficiency, I think Bill Gates says we're getting closer to a 4-day week, is it? Or is it less than that?
Yeah, so that depends on what market, what kind of area we're talking about. Efficiency can differ, right? For a developer, efficiency's more about have we had a good day, have we got the code out? But maybe for marketing, it could be efficiency on how quick we can put out campaigns, for example. So it would differ. I think 4-day weeks are possible, but if we're talking about in the element of AI, I think I would say maybe not yet, just because a lot of the stuff that even I implement today with our team requires a lot of human supervision, and that just won't go away.
No, it's the human and the machine.
But yes, I think if we can get to the level of efficiency, I wouldn't say no.
Yeah. I wouldn't say no to 4-day week. I just saw 4-day week and I was like, I don't need to read anymore.
Yeah, just honestly, UK needs to just do it like for everybody. It has to be compulsory. I would love that.
I think so. We need that shift. And going back to the storytelling. So for you were, of course, inspired by a TED Talk that got you into data science, which is amazing because the TED Talks are just brilliant and there's so much great stuff out there. Yeah. If you've got a spare 10, 20, 30 minutes.
I know it's a little dying, but
Yeah, but you can come away with new knowledge and knowledge is power. Like it really is. So how did you get into public speaking? Like what's your journey been around that?
Network. So I just knew even at the first hackathon, I was like, oh my God, that's really cool. I would love to talk about something I'm passionate about one day on stage as well, even if that's about my journey. So I legit went to random people that I'd connected with and I was like, you know what? I thought you were cool on stage. How did you get into this? And that's kind of how I built mine. The first year was a lot of sponge taking, asking around, and then a little self-promotion, which I really still struggle with. I will say that. I need to do better with self-promotion, but then I just started saying, you know what, I'm interested in this, because if you don't tell people you're interested, they can't really mind read that you want to get into this. And then when I got my first break, thanks to Jess, who actually asked me to be part of the panel talk for the second time I came for the hackathon, and I was volunteering at that time. I wasn't attending. She's like, you know what, do you want to attend this, talk about your journey? And the feedback I got was so heartwarming. It gave me like the confidence. And I was like, I'm so glad it resonated with so many people that I didn't think that. I thought I was alone in this. But the more you talk to people, the less alone you feel. And that's kind of how I was like, okay, actually, you know what? I like this. I'm going to seek out actively. So it was a mix of LinkedIn. It was a mix of leaning on my network and then my network reaching out when there are opportunities. Thanks to Rob, we met through LinkedIn. So yeah, that's really how I kind of grown it slowly. I know there's communities where you can fast forward that, that actually do public speaking as like you could go learn, get coached. So it depends on what your ambition is. So
you're curious, inquisitive, which are key for a data scientist.
Absolutely,
as we know.
Have to be.
Were you nervous? Because for me, I'm still trying to, although I do podcasts, I think public speaking's different. You've got 100%. An audience and you're like, why aren't they smiling or laughing? Like, are they bored? And it's quite terrifying. And my body takes over in a way. I'm like, why am I shaking? Why am I trembling? Why is my mouth gone dry? And you can't help it. I mean, I've done a few now. We're on our third event. And someone actually said, Dawn Carter said she sees that I'm getting more confident.
Love that.
In front of the audience, which is great feedback because she's been to every event. Yeah. But did the nerves come over you, and how do you channel that nervous energy?
Actually, it's going to sound really funny or not. So I wear glasses actually, but as you can see, I'm not wearing them. That's my trick, because even as a dancer, I used to dance a lot, and I would just kind of switch off. Once I'm on stage, I'll have 30 seconds of, oh my God, I'm going to die. And then I just listen to music. And because I'm not wearing glasses, I'm blind. So I'm literally staring at a wall way ahead, like far ahead. And I use that tactic even today. If I'm in a room with people, I look at faces. I definitely try making eye contact from time to time. But that first 2 minutes, I'm definitely not, because I need to calm my nerves down. So I just kind of check out. And if it's a larger room and it's dark, just stare into the darkness. And that definitely helps. Because if you're passionate about something, your body does take over in talking about it. And that's how I kind of tune out and tune in to how I'm feeling.
Yeah, and I think generally, like, people in the audience want you to do well. Like, they're rooting for you. Like, even if you can sense someone's a bit nervous, you're like, well, they care.
Yeah.
And, we'll engage and laugh at their joke a bit louder so they know they're okay.
Yeah.
So do you find bigger audiences easier to speak to than smaller for that reason? Because you can kind of just like,
yes.
okay, that's interesting.
Honestly, bigger audiences, the better, because I can just, then it will just be a sea of heads floating at one point. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's how I kind of take off and tune. But even when I used to play football or do dancing, and I've been performing since I was a kid, so I'm kind of used to that. The way I would also do it is, I prefer a room of strangers to people that I know, because I know these people and I fear the fear of judgment is higher. Not that they are. My closest people always root for me, but it's the mental thing of you think your closer ones are going to judge you for what you're about to say over a room of strangers. So when it's a room of strangers, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But if it's people I know, I'm slightly conscious, and then, I'm doing the staring at a wall for a couple of minutes and then staring at a few people. The minute I spot somebody that's nodding their head or smiling, I make frequent eye contact to get that encouragement to keep going as well.
Yeah, they're like, woo, woo.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You are clearly so proactive in your career, which is brilliant, because you're right.
Thank you.
Opportunity doesn't come to you.
No.
Even if you have best personal brand, best network, you need to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you do that, you can accelerate your career so much quicker. Like, you've probably got experience way more than someone who's been in the industry 10, 15 years. And how has mentorship helped you on that journey as well? Because I know you're involved with She Mentors at the moment.
Yes.
But it's something that you've done previously as well. How do you find that?
Honestly, even in the mentoring space, I spoke to a lot of people, and there was somebody, actually one of my friends, Emma, who actually told me, because I kept telling her, I don't know if I can mentor. What do I have to say? And she was like, right, but you already have a year's worth of experience. Somebody who's starting out could learn from that. And that shifted my perspective, to be very honest. And I was like, you're right, So I think what I started doing, again, was leaning on my network. When somebody mentioned mentoring and stuff, or if I did public speaking, I'd say, I'm open to mentoring. If anybody wants to talk, reach out to me after, or via LinkedIn. And then it became a thing where I was like, you know what? I'll focus. I'm comfortable speaking to early careers because I've done a lot of panel talks that way. I'm talking about my journey. I'm talking about my experience. There are people who are interested. So I could work with them first. And then I definitely think the power of having a mentor makes a difference.
Yes.
And I really struggled getting a mentor up until now. So thank you, She Does Things, for that. Honestly, thank you, because I'm happy to have that kind of mentoring. I think it goes a long way when somebody's rooting for you and is in your industry and is kind of a couple of steps ahead of you and has been there and can navigate some way. So yeah, it's again, power of network. Then I just, ad hoc. A lot of them would be like, okay, let's have an initial call. Let's see what I could support you with, because it doesn't have to be a fixed thing. I mean, some people prefer a structure, but I like to let my mentees kind of give me what they want, because then I can say, yeah, I can support you on that, or actually that's not my area, but I know somebody who could possibly support you on that. And mentoring is always a learning experience, and I think it's, again, passing that knowledge forward.
Yeah.
So,
and you're a question asker,
Yeah.
which is a natural coach. I like you were saying before, like, if someone asks you a question, you ask them a question back.
Yeah.
Because you want to understand where their head's at.
Yes.
And again, that doesn't always come naturally to people, because management think you just dictate and tell.
Yeah.
It's quite like an archaic way.
Yeah. Difference between a manager and a leader. I always say that.
Yeah, but mentorship, also someone who's not in your organization, because you can have that confidant within an organization who, of course, is rooting for you.
Yeah.
But also it's kind of a bit close at the same time.
Yes.
So someone who's maybe in a different industry, different business, different level, it's so key to have that kind of closeness, but also you're detached at the same time.
Yeah, actually spot on, because I think people think you have to find mentors within your same community. But if it's something that you want to learn and it's a new area you want to switch into, you definitely want to find somebody that could potentially be a mentor in that industry, because you want to break into it. And I think that's the power of mentorship. It's that guidance that you get from somebody that you may have connected with through communities or network, and you hone that in to pick on what you want to learn, because it doesn't have to be within data.
No, of course not.
But that's the power of mentoring and coaching.
Yeah, it is. You can learn so much.
Yeah.
And then personal branding. So as a recruiter, I live on LinkedIn and I love LinkedIn. We met on LinkedIn. You know, a lot of my connections come from there, of course.
Yep.
It's uncomfortable for me. You know, sometimes like I was telling you before, I had a bit of coaching in the days before COVID, or just as COVID hit, because that's when I launched my business. And they were like, video's going to be the thing. And I was like, hello, I'm Emma. And the guy was like, why are you trying to be so perfect, like a weather person down there? You're not a TV presenter. Yeah. And I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Okay. And I was using these words that like strive for excellence and things.
Oh,
and
the
it was
jargon.
actually, my coach, Mark Neelan, said to me, Emma, just be you, talk like you. And that's authentic. And I am authentic. I'm not someone to like necessarily, we're doing amazing, but equally, I find it difficult to be vulnerable and like really honest, because at the end of the day, I provide a service. And if I'm ever like, oh, we're not doing so well, obviously, how can that affect relationships? But life isn't always rosy. No. And it is important to paint that picture. Yeah. But you are right, it can be hard to self-promote. Yeah. It's easier for someone to do it for you.
Yeah. Honestly, it is, isn't it? But I think that's such a traditional way of thinking.
Yeah, it is. Now, it's UK. The Americans are very good at being like, that's great. Like, high five. That's amazing.
Honestly, like, go me.
Yeah, go me.
I need that, though. Yeah. I really need that.
Me too. So there is a reservation there. Yeah. But why do you think self-promotion is important in personal branding, done in the right way?
Opportunities. I'm sitting here today because I've done that personal work, personal branding, self-promotion, even though I find it cringe. And that goes back to the fear of being seen. Because now you're like, it's not like you're in front of a camera literally, but metaphorically you are. Yeah. Like your life's become on camera because LinkedIn's now the place to be if you want to build that. But it's also, I think the reservation is because there's a lot of internal work. Mine comes from the fear of being judged.
We can all learn a lot, can't we, from putting yourself out
Honestly, I still struggle with it. I think I could still do more. And I just realized I'm just going to take it at my pace because, again, it's not a mold to be fit in. You should just do it when you feel comfortable. I think that's really what it's down to.
So we just said the difference between UK and US culture. How about in India? Like, are people better there? Would you say it being like, we're great? Because I feel like there's a lot of positive energy.
Yes, I think that's my perception of what I've grown up with, and a lot of my friends. There's a mixed crowd. There's the youth that's hungry, and I think that is why we're in the race, and that's why we're like kind of developing it the way we are. And I think there is a hunger for that. But again, it comes down to the networking and communities. I mean, speaking to my mum when, she was trying to pivot into tech, she definitely said there is communities, but it almost feels like a side thing because in India, there is still some level of stereotype when it comes to work, ambition, hierarchy, and these things could be a side thing. But funnily enough, I have so many friends who've started their own podcast. So I would say it's a mixed thing. The youth are definitely changing things up. And self-promotion is still something that I think they struggle with. And again, it has to do more with what we're supposed to do versus what we can do. Yeah. And that mindset.
And the world has become so much smaller in a way. So you can take the best from different cultures.
You could.
Like if you see something you like and you're like, oh, that's a good way of doing that. I'll take that. Yeah. How did you find, because you came over to the UK for university, right? And then you never went back.
Because this is the 5th country I've settled down in.
Right, okay.
Because I wanted that stability for a little bit. I was born in Kuwait. I'm the 3rd generation from Kuwait. So my grandparents moved there, and then it was my dad, and then me. We moved to Abu Dhabi, just my family, then Singapore and India. India, I was there for like 3 years. My brother was there longer now. He's in Glasgow University doing physics, which is wild. Shout out to him. So I was in India for 3 years. I did a year in Kerala, which is where I'm originally from, so southern tip. And then we lived in Bangalore for a long time. So different cultures, like you said, I picked up different things. No, I didn't move because I had the ambitions of staying here and growing my career a little bit first before I made another move. So yeah, I think the opportunities were there, found the opportunities, COVID hit, and I definitely didn't want to go back at that stage in time. So try to hold on and did what I did to keep growing while I was here.
Yeah, I think that helps confidence. And obviously not everyone has that chance or opportunity when they're younger necessarily, dependent on their family. But
Of course.
I spent 3 months in New York when I was 21, and then at 23 moved to Japan for 6 years.
Lovely.
And now anyone who's like, I'm going to take a sabbatical or go on a gap year or live, I'm like, do it. Like
No,
it changes you as a
yeah,
person.
Absolutely. I think you need to do that
Yeah.
to realize there's a world outside your world. And then you kind of learn, oh, there's a thing that you like that you want to, now you'll never forget. You'll probably learn something along the way. And I will say, though, taking a sabbatical definitely, I acknowledge, comes from a level of privilege to afford it.
Yeah.
So, yes, I know not everybody can do it. But if you ever do get the opportunity, I always say yes. Grab onto it because you learn so much. You grow as a human, which is probably the most important bit.
Yeah, that was probably very formative for you. Like when I think back, just because of family situations, I went to 3 different primary schools, which at the time was tough. But I think now that really taught me lessons of like resilience, making friends, which sounds basic, but it's tough to do.
So tough, honestly. I changed 3 high schools.
Did you? Yeah.
It was so tough.
Yeah.
And I don't think I appreciated it at that point. Again, because we were moving so much. Even when I was in Abu Dhabi, I moved 3 schools.
Wow.
Where opportunity was, my dad was really good at that. And it's probably something I picked up from him, to be very honest, where I've kind of watched him grow. He's been with this company, and this kind of loyalty I don't think exists in our generation, but he's been there like 30 plus years.
Wow.
But he had grabbed on to every opportunity. Is the reason why we moved. He took the risk.
Yeah.
He made that call. And I acknowledge the level of privilege we were at because the company took us in, treated my dad really well, made sure he was growing in his career, but also at the same time ensured the education was also given as access to privilege. So we went to private schools on a single income household, which you can't really do now, can you? Especially with the economy and stuff. But at that stage, it's wild because he did that. He grabbed onto the opportunity. Sometimes it doesn't work, but his thing is he does not have regrets.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you want to do it. I can't say I fully agree, follow that. But something that I definitely picked up is if there's an opportunity, don't shut it down. See how far you can get with it. Grab it if you can get it. See how it goes.
Yeah, you are right. Taking risks and being able to, and fortunate enough, can come from a place of privilege.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people, I'm sure, that think, I was in that job 2 years too long. I was in that relationship 2 years too long.
Yeah.
I was living in that place 2 years too long.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult.
It is.
Like, we are creatures of habit and we get comfortable, but you need to push yourself outside of that discomfort.
Yeah.
And, I was maybe a little, I call it like naive optimism. Like, I was like, of course I'm moving to Japan. Why wouldn't I do that? No, I don't speak the language, have any friends. It's the other side of the world. I'd never been there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm that person now, but obviously it shaped me. Again, starting a business, I'm like, well, what's the worst that can happen? I can get employed. I'll be able to be employed again. So far it's going well, thank God. It's been a rocky road.
Phenomenal, yeah.
But whenever someone says to me, should I? I'm like, yeah, because you regret what you don't do, not what you do. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree by that because it is that, what is the worst that can happen? I am an anxious person. I really am. And I know a lot of people get shocked when I say that, but I really have anxiety and I have ways of coping with it. And I'm more open about it now than maybe I was a couple of years ago. But it has shaped the way I think. Because my partner's, he's pretty supportive. I do calculated risks.
Yes, okay. Of course.
He's more like, what's the worst that could happen?
Intuition.
Just goes.
Yeah.
Just dives. And I think I could learn a lot that way. But I think he maybe, I'd like to believe, has picked up, sometimes it's okay to do calculated risks.
Yeah. You need the balance.
Yeah, you need the balance.
I could have a little bit more of that.
Yeah. So, I think it's just whatever works for you, but
agree.
shaping you.
Agree. So we're going to move on to the quickfire data lightning round.
Yeah.
Number 1, what is a myth in data that you'd like to debunk?
that you're going to spend your entire time coding.
Yes, good one. Name a book, event, or podcast that every data enthusiast should explore.
There's so many. Event that I really like is the data science meetup, but a book that I liked, if you're into slightly math but also business. The title will throw you off, but it's called The Art of Statistics. Very interesting if you want to understand storytelling, visualization, and how people should read graphs and, calling out the bullshit.
Yeah. Why do you think the title will throw you off?
Because people will think it's more stats. It is slightly stats, but it's also about how you would want to interpret graphs. Because you're reading news articles and they're throwing graphs at you, but sometimes it's the way they've skewed it to make you believe a certain thing. And it's about understanding, okay, they're saying that, but what's the sample size?
Yeah, true.
You know, it's the hype versus what's the reality.
I'm really bad at that. I'm like, oh my God, see a headline and like tell everyone about it. And it's like 30 people.
Actually, there is one more book I would recommend, Calling Bullshit in a Data-Driven World. Ooh. That's probably better. A little more heavy, but yeah.
2 good ones there. Finish the sentence. Data is the key to.
Data is the key to unlocking creative solutions.
Very good. What is a piece of advice you'd give to someone just starting their career in data?
Start where you want to start. So if that is learning a certain language, definitely start there first and then make your way up. So do everything in bite-sized chunks because otherwise it's going to get overwhelming.
Yeah, for sure. And last one, what is a data buzzword that you love to hate?
My colleague and I, it's not necessarily data, but there's a few. We think when they say AI as a buzzword is something that we are like, oh, here we go again. What do they mean by AI? But sustainability. What does that mean?
Yeah. They're ones in the corporate world are really clinging on to at the moment.
Yeah. So I think my colleague and I, we were making fun of it, like, okay, but what does that actually mean? You know? Oh, here we go. And we saw somebody else use it. I was like, oh, did you spot it? So yeah.
So many people use words, don't they? And it's like, I'd love to, and you like to ask questions back and you don't want to be rude, but what do you mean by that? And then I'm probably like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, you could think I'm dumb, but I'm genuinely asking because what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well done.
Thank you.
Went super quick. Thank you.
Oh, this is awesome. Thank you very much for having me.